after 9, so I think we might as well go ahead and get going. I think with the exception of Ann, who knows Carey and Carol, obviously, we've got all our regular crew. So I don't know, Ann, would you like to hear introductions from us as to who we are, or should we just jump right into the slideshow?
Oh, well, I leave it up to you, whatever you have time for.
Yeah. Um,
Maybe a quick overview of people here. We've got, Martin, you could go through the list there. You're with the Open Space Committee and many other things here.
Yeah, that's me.
yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I mean,
a lot of town meeting.
We're just a bunch of. I think we got all Natickers this morning. We get together every Monday morning. Often our topics are around something like having to do with social justice or environmental responsibility or local or national politics. But sometimes we've all become good friends, which actually we're going to learn about in spades with this morning's talk. And sometimes it's just fun to hear about each other's big adventures. And this certainly sounds like a big one. So yeah, let's dispense with extra introductions, but people can introduce themselves as we get into the conversation later on. So okay. Carey and Carol, turn it over to the two of you.
Okay. So Carey put together a great group of slides.
It's going to be a little bit of an unusual start, but I think this is a little bit of the backstory as to how this all came about. So
yeah.
So oddly enough, it all started when I'd be walking through the neighborhood and people occasionally would stop me and say, "Is that an Egyptian dog?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I don't know what an Egyptian dog looks like. And then, one time when I was out leafleting the neighborhood running for town meeting, a woman was walking down a little quiet street with her 8 or 10-year-old son. He stops and plants, "Look, he's got Batman ears." So I said, and then it was, 1 second here, let me advance the slide. I had the occasion to ask Carol, I said, "Do you think, Jed is an Egyptian dog?" And she said, "I don't know, but there's one way to find out." And I said, "We're going to have to go to Egypt?" And she said, "Well, of course." I said, "Well, who's going to watch Jed?" That's him with his favorite toy.
Wow.
Said, well, my girlfriend Leslie, who's joined us here, she can watch him while we're over in Egypt. And then the next thing we had to kind of figure out is, how are we going to get to Egypt? And Carol said she knew some guys that had a hot air balloon adventure. She said, Richard Branson's flown across the oceans a couple of times. Why can't we? So we took a little trip across the pond, got off course a little bit, and inadvertently ended up touching down in Amman, Jordan. So this is where the story really begins. Carol, Carol had been on a number of trips with overseas adventure travel. And she was had this trip all planned with a fellow named Tom that she had traveled to a number of places with. Carol, you've been to Iceland and where else, Carol?
Well, I've been to Africa with Tom. Yeah. So he's a travel buddy, but he became a friend. He was just here this week to visit. So we've stayed in touch.
So Leslie and I were actually last Easter. We were coming back from Rangeley, Maine. You can see here, just a beautiful little getaway with Jed. And the phone rings just out of the blue. We're driving home and Carol goes, "Tom can't go to Egypt. Would you like to go?" How do you answer that question? Give me a few seconds. So the only concern was, who's going to watch Jed? And Leslie offered up, "This is a trip of a lifetime. I will take care of your dog." So,
and how far was this before the trip, Carey?
This is in late March, so it's about 4 months ahead of time.
Wow.
So we took off late August and touched down in Istanbul at the airport there for a quick little snack.
Snickers. Did you buy that there, or do they have them here?
We bought it there, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was about $4. And just absurd. So we limited to just one Snickers bar. So we did end up in Amman, and the next day we went out and visited the Citadel and kind of did a little tour of some of the antiquities around the area. And just, it's hard to believe how many thousands of years, all this stuff is. And there's Carol doing a little sightseeing there in the middle and maybe gazing up at the Jordanian flag off to the right there. But there's a few more images. Just, I think this is Roman influence, sometime it was, who else had occupied this area, Carol? Was it Greeks, I think, and the Byzantines?
The Romans, the Byzantines, people, the Islamic people.
So it traded hands a number of times, and each one had a little bit of influence in terms of the architecture and what was built. So
This was so beautiful.
so
What was the temperature? Like it was in the 90s and there was no shade.
it might have been hotter than that even, yeah, but it was a dry heat. But you're right, it was at least 90 something. If I can play this video, the picture off to the right, this is kind of ingenious. I don't know if it was the Romans who did this, but they had these towering, pillars you can see, and they would sway a little bit, just in some breeze. So they came up with this ingenious way to kind of stabilize them. If you look to the right, see if it plays.
Yeah.
Come on.
What is that thing that's sticking out to the right?
It's like a plastic fork or something. It's not an optical illusion. You could put your finger right where that fork is, and you could feel just slight little sway in that towering pillar.
Wow.
But it, seemed to have prevented many of those from toppling. So.
Oh, wow.
And that's moving just in the wind, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So. And next there was a 3,000 seat Roman theater. Another one of our travel buddies there. Andy, see Diane sitting there in the audience? She might be on mute.
Yeah, what was 5,000 seats?
Yeah, something. So I ventured up those steps to kind of get a better look at the performance here that was taking place down below. And after we left the theater, we kind of went out on some of the streets in Amman and just kind of took a look at some of the street scenes here, some of the architecture, people strolling about, some shopkeepers, and even a little siesta that was taking place.
That fellow on the right, is that the?
Yeah, the heat, I guess, does take its toll. And I said, well, let's, I'm tired. Let's go to a Planet Fitness. I hear there's one up on top of Mount Nebo. So off we went. And this is actually a spot, and there's a little saying there that, 1 second here, let me get to this. Where Moses is said to have gazed out on the Holy Land, I don't know how many thousands of years ago. This was the gaze that we saw from the top of Mount Nebo. And then one of the things that Overseas Adventure Travel does, and Carol can speak more to this, was some of the little hosted dinners that people have. This was somebody in outside of Amman in Jerash, and the fellow holding the baby was our tour leader. His name was Khalid, who was just he was just so beloved by all the people who were part of the group. You want to speak about the hosted dinner a little bit, Carol?
Oh, well, that is a tradition of OAT. So wherever you go, there's always a hosted dinner. So it gives you a chance to really meet a local family. And in this family, there was the grandparents were there, a daughter was there, as well as the owners. And it was just beautiful how they prepared it and made us feel so much at home. Here's a little bit of what we had: the rice with almonds and a salad, and over here the chicken, and that's the mom of the family, and she's dressed in a traditional outfit.
And then there's
Is that
another
a
Carey.
tradition of theirs to cover the beverage glasses? What's up with that?
Um, hmm,
It's interesting just to see how they look.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah. Hmm.
if that's a tradition, but
Hmm.
it is for that family.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
sure. So,
So, yeah, they had do you see the plastic tablecloth and on the table? And then also you can see the chairs and they're upholstered and they love family. So they have a picture on the wall of the family. So it gives you a sense of just this one family. Others, yeah, we had dinners with other families in other places as well.
and then Carol was sitting to your right there, and she was pretty well known for an international organization. Do you remember what it was called?
You mean OAT?
No. Carol was involved. Maybe Anne would remember. She was unmuted, but she was kind of a world traveler and was a radio personality, I think, that just kind of talked about different things around the globe. It slips my memory right now, but
He was the leader of Voice of America, if you know.
right.
that's
Yeah.
what.
Mhm.
Thank you.
CIA.
So after the dinner, we got ready for our next adventure that included hiking down some towering cliffs down to where the Bedouins live in Petra.
Wow.
This is, these people, the Bedouins had lived in some of these caves for I don't know how many centuries.
Have
And
any of you been to Egypt or to Petra?
this is Jordan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan. Yeah. Anybody? No. Okay.
Makes me want to go looking at these pictures.
Yeah. I've been-
I haven't been, but my wife is actually leaving in about a week and a half. She's going to go to Petra. She's going to spend a week in Jordan for work.
Oh,
Very
Oh.
excited about this.
Cool.
I'm teasing. I've taken a couple of screenshots and I'm teasing her with photos for.
well, here you can see some of these these towering, canyons that are up there. The second slide from the left, if you can just make out at the very bottom, you can see some figures there, perhaps.
Yeah.
Give you a sense of just how tall these were.
Wow.
There's Carol in the third slide.
So as a geologist, I have a double reason to love this, but the human history and the geologic history. It just, I want to go.
And then we can get our first glimpse of the treasury, which is one of the 7 new wonders of the world, which is just incredible. Carol, you did some research on this and kind of learned a little bit more about how it was crafted.
Yeah. So one of the things I read was that the cutting tools, and also that the craftsmen started at the top to do this. And after 2 minutes of carving, they had to stop because it was so difficult for their hand to do any more. So you can imagine too then how many people must have been carving this out, but they were all skilled craftspeople. It's just an amazing place. The details and I don't know who designed it, but they did such a beautiful job.
So gives you a little sense of how tall, big it is, and some of the locals there, crowds gathered, but
Yes, so in terms of transportation to get there, of course, everybody could walk, but they also had camels, they had donkeys, they had this little cart that was like a golf cart for some people. But this is at the end where the treasury is. This is the end of the walk.
yeah. And it was time for a little relaxation. This was supposedly one of the caves that the Bedouin people had lived in that has been kind of repurposed, if you will, and we had a place to kind of hang out and get a cool beverage, little fun and games here.
I love that one on the left. Is it called a treasury? Are there actually valuables stored in there, or what?
There's behind the facade that we could see, there's just a large open room which is completely empty. It's alleged to have maybe stored some some king's treasures or such. It's still speculation as to what it was used for.
So this was down below the house was up above somewhere, and they brought us fresh orange juice. And you see the straw is a little bigger than our straws because the rind from the orange juice, the inner part, you know, kept getting stuck. Straw. So
Yeah.
we had lots of fun.
So speaking of fun, you know, so after, you know, a cool beverage, then it was time for I pulled out my cell phone and called Uber Donkey.
Wow.
It was going to be a long walk in 195 or 100-degree heat, so we decided let's call Uber. So off we went there with Carol.
And those guys stayed right with me the whole time, making sure I stayed on. It's a little bumpy.
Yeah. So after we got back to Amman, it was time to the hotel in Petra. We decided it was time to kind of check things out a little bit and maybe take in a quick massage there. Carol did. No, we didn't. She didn't actually have a massage, but cold beverage. But anyway, so that was it for Jordan. You can kind of see in the maps there, it's kind of east and to the north a little bit. Next stop was Cairo, and you can see sort of as we wandered down, we were Giza was just left of Cairo, where the red square is there with the pyramids. Further down, kind of where to the right of the big Egyptian word is Luxor. And a little further down is Aswan. That was kind of down. You'll learn about more of that in a little bit. And then Lake Nasser, which you'll also learn about. So here we're off to Egypt. And this is the Marriott in Cairo, where we stayed and had many a breakfast out on this little terrace. A really nice hotel. And then it was off to the museum. And this is the reason I went on this trip. I had to have this burning question answered.
There we go. Wow.
Now look at the similarities.
Yeah.
So we spent some time touring around the Egyptian museum, and then
Is that a new archaeological museum? I heard there was a new one opened recently.
yes, yeah, I didn't take too many pictures from there, but maybe I should have, but I thought I had enough slides altogether. But yep, that was it. And then something else that OAT does, Carol, was they have get some speakers.
In this case, they invited this woman to come in and talk about women's rights in Egypt. So that was really fascinating. And this woman, one thing about her especially was that she had been divorced and she did remarry, which we were interested in knowing whether that would be possible. So she was very good about describing many of the rights that women now have. There is more equality now, so that was good to hear.
And there's us having dinner or lunch, I'm not sure what it is, off to the right there. And the fellow with his back to us, the bald head, is our tour leader in Egypt. Ayman, his name was, who was an Egyptologist as well. So he knew, could answer any question virtually. You could ask him about Egypt travels. And at the hotel, there was a wedding one night. I mean, it was like everything was like rented. Look, you can imagine what it cost to rent each one of those gold lease chairs. It was just quite a production. They didn't invite us. I couldn't believe it. And this is looking out of the balcony at the hotel that we had. I think we were about the 9th floor or something like that. Across the way in the middle shot, you'll hear more about this, is the Cairo Tower. But that's kind of the view that we had, and Carol relaxed a little bit after a long day. And then it was off to the pyramids.
Our first sight of pyramids. We traveled in a bus. I wanted to talk a little bit about that quickly, and that is that oftentimes we had a police car in front of us. And somebody also was on the bus. This was a man in a black suit in the very front, and he had a gun.
Yes. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, Anne, I think that might be you in the kind of the maroon, purple maroon shirt there on the left.
It was the
No.
concern there, Carol, that as American tourists, there might be an issue, or what was going on there?
Well, yes, I think there was a concern.
Hmm.
This is their way of protecting anybody from possibly getting involved with us.
Hmm.
So this is how they provide safety.
But kind of-
Unclear what they could have saved us from, if there had been
Working there,
a
nobody's.
terrorist act, I think it's unlikely he could have helped us, but I think the vendors were very aggressive, and so he did help keep vendors at bay. And then they had a very nice solution to invite one vendor to bring their wares onto the bus, where we could we usually purchased everything they had to help them out, and they had nice wares, but it's unclear to me what he would have protected us from. I didn't feel unsafe, in other words. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
No, thank you for clarifying or amplifying.
yeah.
That's why you two were invited, because people think of different things to say about a particular slide or event.
Exactly. And then that left slide, the fellow facing us is Iman once again, just kind of, talking about, what to expect and so on and so forth. And probably just what we're talking about, kind of allowing the security person to sort of keep the vendors at bay a little bit. So there we are, a little closer. It's, you can just tell from the size, it's just massive.
Did they build those from the top down too?
I was just thinking to say something about that.
And yes, we did venture inside. And I don't think that the Egyptians had the luxury of those little steps per se, but off to the right there were some steps that seem to be in place. I don't know, if they're original or what, but they held up pretty well if they are. So. And just FYI, what's left of the original 7 wonders of the world is the pyramids in Giza. So the other 6 have faded with time.
And what do you get to when you go down the tunnels, if anything? Is there anything?
Just
was
some
that-
empty rooms. There wasn't too much that we could see in there, but I thought, well, here's an opportunity to say we went inside the pyramids.
I guess that's where the people were, the pharaohs were buried, or the treasures were.
Yeah, at some point, but that was off limits for us.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the Sphinx. You can see.
You can see people behind him walking. They look like tiny, very tiny people.
Yeah.
So impressive.
So that picture there, is there like an outer layer that's worn away from these pyramids over time, or?
That's my understanding. Yes. Yeah.
Huh.
I think it was limestone, I believe. Carol, Ann, if you know.
I think that's right, Carey. And it's interesting, a lot of it was mined, taken for other structures over the centuries. And I think some of it eroded, but probably very little. It was more, kind of pirated. But I was intrigued to learn that a lot of the statues, and I think as well as the pyramids, were polished. So it was limestone and very, beautiful polished limestone. If you can imagine, that glinting in the sun, and white, it must have been really impressive.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ann. Yeah. Oh, and then it was time for the next adventure, a camel.
Is that you again, Carol?
That is me.
Wow.
I have 2 artificial hips, so it's a little difficult to get on him. I lasted about 3 minutes, and then That was it was a really rough ride, and it's not easy to get when the camel goes to get up. Has anybody else been on a camel? Maybe others. Yeah.
Like Martin has, yeah.
Martin, do you remember how it was when the camel stood
Yeah, I
up?
kind of thought the guy told me he's going to tell the camel when to get up, but the camel didn't wait. As soon as he felt that I was on him, he just got up right away, and I was like, not really ready. I almost got thrown off, but I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
you
were
feel like you're gonna
watching,
fall off because he rocks and he.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess if you know what to expect, it's okay. But
we were watching one of those Beyonder travel tours a few weeks ago where the tour guide was riding the camel, or she called it a dromedary, right? Or,
Yeah.
with the GoPro, camera. And again, supposedly the guide was going to direct the camel when to kneel for her to get off, but the camel decided to do it on its own, and the camera went all kind of haywire, and the tour guide went woo.
Yeah, as you're riding on one of them, they have a really kind of an awkward gait. It's not like a donkey that's kind of awkward riding them.
Yeah.
Somehow they use them as for camel races with real jockeys on them. And then we found out later on we had a video that we watched a little bit later in the trip. They actually had robots, if you will, that were sitting in the saddle with the cameras with the camera on their heads. It was pretty interesting.
Wow. Huh.
And the first camel here is a woman named Diane, who was from Arizona. It was a really neat person. And then fellow between us was from originally from India, but lived outside of Chicago with his wife and a few others. And I had another videotape. This camel's name was named by Iman, whose name was Chocolate. And I had a little video of him going where he was just moving his mouth around and didn't know he's chewing. He's actually regurgitating the hay that he took in. It was really quite interesting. I couldn't get it to work like I did with the other video at the tower, the pillar. But peace-loving animals. And here we are, another meal down from the pyramids. Next up, Luxor. And we went up to the Temple of Karnak there. Just a couple shots here. Is that you, Anna, in the yellow?
Yes, that's me.
It's Karnak, like the old Johnny Carson. Karnak? Is that what you mean?
No, that's a good one. I was wondering that myself. I think it might be. So that was more.
That's a gorgeous shot.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, your photography is really great, Carey.
Until then we had to go from, living in this little 2-bit hotel for a couple nights. This is just horrible.
This is the Winter Palace.
Yeah.
It
In
was
Luxor.
beautiful.
Yeah. It was amazing. This is apparently where Agatha Christie penned her novel, The Death on the Nile.
Wow.
I just have to add that it has a magnificent pool, absolutely magnificent, kind of Olympic size. And this is where I bonded with Carol. We were both swimming and talking, and I had to really I'm a good swimmer, and I had to push to keep up with Carol. So it was a great swimmer's bonding experience, Carol.
I remember. It was so much fun.
And there's just some scenes inside the Winter Palace. It's this incredible hotel. Yeah.
So on the left, I'm sorry, is there a rug over the tile, or is that all tile?
Yep. That's it. It's a rug. The rug. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
And if you can see up in the balcony there, way up with the curtains, that's where they had a place. I used to watch her coming down there. It was so elegant.
Oh.
Not like coming down a escalator at the Trump. Just some scenes from outside, back from the Winter Palace. And I have this up? I don't have one of the pool that Anne spoke of. Sorry, someplace in my slides, somewhat limited. So after we got settled in, the next stop was to take a ride across the Nile River to the Valley of the Kings, which is kind of cool. It was not our boat, but one very similar to it. And then I know Anne has spoken with some of the vendors kind of selling their wares. The middle shot there, he had some scarves that he was selling at nominal price, very nice silk scarves. think one of them apparently caught the attention of Carol there. She's looking quite, and here's some of these massive statues that were there that have kind of eroded over time. And then some of the tombs. There was, I don't know how many different pharaohs had their burial grounds here, but many, and a lot of them were just really uncovered in the last probably 100 years or so. And some of the drawings that were made, that lasted. The picture on the right, that's probably 2,000 years old. Look how the colors, the pigments are just incredible. That's inside, by the way. It's not outside in the sun.
They said they do not restore, so they don't repaint. They only clean things in Egypt. So all of this, as Carey said, is original paint, which I think lasted also because they tended to use mineral paints, ground up stones and precious metals for their paints, and as opposed to insects. Some other cultures have used crushed up insects for red, which has faded.
And that was me on the right when I found out I have to make a presentation and talk about this trip.
I just want to say Carey volunteered. We are grateful.
So, and here we are. This is the second most important thing after the dogs. So that's actually, we went down inside. That's supposedly the King Tut. Well preserved.
Yeah, we can talk about how much mummification takes place. We went to what it was, not alligator, it was crocodile museum, and all the crocodiles were mummified.
Yeah, this is another area that we saw there, and I think, not to scare any people away, Paul, wife, I think several years ago, I think there was an attack at this temple, or its museum, if you will. I'm not sure what you'd actually call it, but yeah, it was kind of ugly. But I don't think there's been any violence since there. You can see Carol kind of making her way up the hill there in 105-degree heat there, off on the right in the kind of greenish pants. Yeah.
Carey,
Yes.
this is Sally.
Hi, Sally.
I'd like to comment that temple is the temple of Hatshepsut, who is the one woman pharaoh. So I was able to be there, years ago, but that's kind of a famous place for us women.
Wow.
Indeed. Yeah. How long ago were you there, Sally?
In 96.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just remarkable. Once again, I don't know how many thousands of years that temple is, but it's maybe not thousands, but quite old.
Yeah.
Here's some more scenes.
Is this another case of one being carved out of the rock or built in front of the rock?
That's
I'm just curious, just the way it is situated there.
Yeah, you look at just behind the temple, and it looks like they might have just carved it out of the sandstone.
Yeah, I don't know that fact either. That's a good one. I should look that up. But about 8 or 10 years ago, they did a production of Aida, the opera, right there at the Temple of Hatshepsut, and it was very, very posh. People came from. I'm trying to think who came from the United States, but some famous ambassadors. It's a beautiful setting.
Yeah. So it was blazing hot, and then I said, I'm tired of all this stuff. Let's go for a little rides on some of the mechanism. So we got up the following morning about 4:30 and made our way over to where the hot air balloons were. And from what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I think because of the winds are a little too strong, I don't think the balloons had been up in the air for about 20 days. So we were just, luck was with us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is firing up the balloons, and probably still before 6 o'clock in the morning here. Carol was a little unsure if she wanted to go to do this. This was kind of like an added adventure, and I went and bought 2 tickets for us. I said, "No, when are you going to have an opportunity again to see the sunrise over the Nile?" So we went.
You guys are brave.
Brave or stupid.
It's actually two different slides, you know. But it
Oh
kind of
yeah. Okay.
How many people in each balloon, in each whatever you call it, the basket or the cabin or?
was it 4? Was it, Carol?
Well,
Was it 4? I believe.
yeah, the basket was divided into 4 sections.
Yeah.
So it could be 4.
Yeah.
I happened to be by myself in the balloon.
Had to fly it yourself? Did you have a guide? Yeah.
You took pictures of yourself here.
But once you get used to it, and the fire, you know, it's big, the fire, the way I looked at it. But then, going over the Nile in the balloon,
So here's the sun coming up.
here's the sun. It was so exciting. I'm glad Carey pushed me to do it.
And then the touching down was a little bit rougher.
They didn't know where to land the balloon.
I don't know if the wind was pushing a little bit, but we sort of made a hard landing, and then the balloon lifted off the ground again, went another 20 or 30 feet or so before finally stopping.
We ended up in this field.
Inside this basket, they had these kind of not hooks, but these canvas things, like a loop that came down. And the object was one person had to stand behind another and hold on, loop around the other person in front of you and hold on to these things and hold fast as you touch ground, because it shook quite a bit as we touched ground.
Hmm.
And then we had to, touch down on this little tiny little boat that we spent 5 days on.
It was a beautiful boat.
It's gorgeous.
This is just
Yeah.
saying hello. Yeah.
And one thing is that we had a tugboat pulling us on the Nile. They don't have power boats.
Yeah, so we didn't happen to listen to the constant churning of the diesel turbines or whatever. It was just like we were under sail almost. It was just so peaceful. Here's a couple more scenes of the boat. I mean, the accommodations were okay. I mean, not great, but
It was just
So 5 days on that. So you had accommodations on that boat?
Yep.
Yeah.
so we were very lucky. We had the last cabin in the stern. So basically, we had a very beautiful bedroom area, and then a place to walk out on a deck, and then you could really touch the Nile because we were in the very, very back, and they had a little room at the end. You open the door from your cabin, and 2 seats and a table.
Yep, there's a
you could
picture.
put your hand in the Nile.
Oh, we were so lucky to have that. It was wonderful. So this obviously is up on the top deck, and at nighttime we'd come up there in the pitch dark. It was just so warm out there, and kind of just gaze up at the stars, and just it's really amazing. There's the tugboat.
Any sense of how deep it is there and how warm the water is?
In the middle, it's a good question. I mean, ships go up it. Probably, I don't know. By the shore, it's actually Carol went for a little dip. I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately, but Carol went for a swim, and she swam almost halfway across the Nile. I had to call her back, but it was warm enough, Carol, right?
Really?
Oh yeah, it was a very pleasant temperature.
I don't think I've ever seen such a clean looking tug. You said that's the tug? Wow.
That's what pulled us. Yeah.
Wow.
The little tug that could. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the water is that clean for swimming. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The further away you get from Cairo, the further upstream, there were pockets of, clean. There isn't a lot of industry along the Nile.
Yeah. Might account for the cleanliness too, Anna. It's something I learned when I got over there is the Nile actually runs from the south to the north.
Right. It's the only major river in the world that goes from south to north.
And empties into the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
So this is
And they're not growing things along it that, you know, fertilizers and so forth are
Well,
going into the river.
that is a problem since, you know, since they built the dam, they have to use fertilizer. The natural Nile, the ebb and flow of the Nile, as it was in ancient times, created silt deposits. So the fields never had to be fertilized. And that is a problem now. They have to use fertilizer because they've dammed the Nile, they've controlled it, and they don't have that natural silt deposit every year.
Yeah. And you see some
But it
shots.
was relatively clear. I'm sorry, Carey.
Oh,
Go
no,
ahead.
you'll see some shots of the dam that's further down near Aswan pretty soon. Along the way down the river though, we stopped in a little village. It was on an island actually that lived on, as I recall. And here they're making a sale. Kind of everybody gets involved and participates. Even the little girl there in the second from the top is doing her thing. It's just some local tourists here. At one point, yeah, the kids, we told them our names and they wrote it in Arabic. And I went to another kid in the bottom left corner there. I just pointed to not like that. And I said, what does that say? And in clear English, said Carey. I mean, she pronounced it perfectly. And she was not there when it was written out in Arabic. That little guy off to the right was really cute.
Yeah. That kid's gonna make something of himself. You can just tell.
So, and this was another little adventure. This guy's name is Mohammed, and he, you can see the baskets there. It's palm trees that he's working with. He's got this very primitive tool, which I'm holding in the middle spot, and he fashions like Iman was saying about 1,000 of these crates a year that they use for storing papayas and different types of fruit, even little birds and such. And then Carol, he made a little gift for each one of us. It's resting on my knee there, and Carol can talk a little bit about that, I think.
Well, the other thing I want to add, he used his toes as well as his hands to make these things. And then you see the symbol on a leg there, and that's called an ankh. And it's a symbol of eternal life in ancient Egypt.
Yes.
And so I have one right here that he gave us an opportunity to have these things. So I have this ankh, and then I have also a ladder that he made. And it's beautiful lattice work.
Yeah.
And the way he made it, and you can see here where the pieces came through.
Yeah. Up in the top right corner, a little picture, if you can see it, is a chair. I mean, he makes all kinds of things from the palm, and that's just the only tool he has is what he's holding there, and I'm holding. And I did have another video, unfortunately, didn't show quite as well. Maybe I can copy and paste it and send it to everybody who's part of this, where Carol talked about him using his feet. He's got these long pieces, as you can see in the left-hand side, as he moves along. He has to mark a spot on the piece of palm, and then goes back later and takes like a little punch hole and punches these holes through the palm, which is how the different pieces are connected and held in place. It's just to watch this guy work. He just does it by rote. And I believe that Iman said he's been doing this for about 30 years. He'll just come every day, sit right there for hours at a time and just do this.
Do you guys pay them for when you buy it? Do you buy it, pay them?
No, well, no, but many of us left a tip kind of thing. I mean, there was no pricing or anything, so people just
to buy a basket or something like that, which would be difficult to bring home. Yeah, that might be a different story, but the little ankh was just a gift. So,
that's nice.
And a couple more scenes along the Nile. As you can see, some of the occupants there staring at us on the left-hand top. Big
or no, that's the
water buffalo. Back to the scene that we saw with the kids working on the sale. That was we had a meal with this family too that included, I think, probably 3, maybe 4 generations of people. They made another little meal for us. A new bridge being built across the Nile.
So when you see the the animal there, the water buffalo, I think he is. I mean, these animals are coming to the Nile to drink and maybe do some other things as well. So, you know, talking about how clean the Nile is, it's questionable, I suppose. I did go in and swim, but obviously didn't take any water in my mouth, and then came out and ran to the shower.
Yeah. That's one of those vehicles that sometimes we would, you know, if we got off the boat and we had to travel a distance to get to, like, you know, for example, a camel auction or something like that, we might ride in a little vehicle like this. Oh, speaking of which, Carol was thinking about buying a camel since she had so much fun riding on it at the pyramids, and then, you know, but her bid wasn't high enough.
Have you ever seen a camel's tongue?
No.
Well, it's very long. And do you know whether it's 8 or 10 inches long?
I don't. It is quite long though.
It is. He's a funny animal.
If somebody made a winning bid, they had to then get them on the back of the truck.
Oh God.
And they didn't. They had like a piece of leather, probably 3 feet long and maybe 3 inches wide or so. They didn't really strike the animal. They just smacked it down, made these loud noises, and that would kind of coax the camels into getting the truck. But he had to load 3 different camels in that one truck. I had a video of sort of the process, and unfortunately can't show that one, but
it took about 20 minutes to get him in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it was not easy.
And here's Carol spoke about the stern of the boat. On the bottom left is the little our little spot there was, yeah.
Kind of Carey and I like our little gin and tonics, yeah.
I love your headwear there. Yeah, right.
That kind of wrapped up our trip down the Nile, but actually not quite yet. So this is down near the High Dam in Aswan, another really beautiful hotel called the Old Cataract. I think it also had a swimming pool, as you can see. And I'm sure you and Carol went in that one as well.
I did.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. So just some scenes from inside and around the hotel. It's just gorgeous. Yeah.
And cataract means waterfall.
And oops, I got ahead of myself a little bit, but we took another trip over to an island temple, and just decided to take that in. At the base of one of these pyramids was a little cutout, if you will, and there was a mother with probably about 6 kittens, I think I counted there. I'm not sure how they survive because they're on an island, but they're doing okay. There's some scenes from the boat, as you can see. Just a really cool place, peaceful. And this is the dam. I got out of order a little bit. My favorite part of the dam was seeing the little dogs, just stray dogs there, mom and her little pups. But when they created this dam, I think they began around 1960, and it just flooded out this whole region where the Nubian population had lived and just had lived and grown their crops for centuries. Just flooded it out. I believe Lake Nasser, which is created by King Nasser.
Yeah, it's Deborah again. Deb Mitchell.
Yep.
Did they have slavery in Egypt? Do you know?
If they did, they wasn't part of. We did have a presentation that was done by a gentleman who was a Nubian himself, who they were displaced from the area that they had been living in and resettled north of Aswan. But a lot of their agriculture area was flooded by the dam and causing Lake Nasser, which is, I think, about 115 miles long, if I'm not mistaken.
So you don't know.
I am not certain, Deb. Sorry.
That's okay.
And at the end of the trip, this is Abu Simbel, which was also sort of a victim of the dam. They had to, in the mid-60s, they actually had to go in with part of it with cut saws, little hand saws, disassemble these statues that you see on the left and relocate them about, I think, 90 feet or so and about 650 feet away from a cliff, or else they were just going to be completely submerged by the lake. And you can see just how large these things were. Imagine hand cutting much of the work and identifying each piece and then piecing it together again.
Carey, Jackie Kennedy, and back in the 60s, was very influential in trying to help save these temples. A lot of her artistic advocacy. So this Abu Simbel is a phenomenon to have been. It would be terrible to have that flooded. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite things on the whole trip. And there were 4 statues of Ramses. And it was so fascinating when they were originally carved. Each statue was absolutely identical to 2 inches. So imagine carving these out of the rock by hand, and they're absolutely identical to within 2 inches. And they're massive, absolutely massive.
Who carved these statues? Who actually carved them?
Egyptians.
Yeah.
During Ramses' reign, and he constructed it in this location almost as a warning to the Nubians to the south not to enter his kingdom. And it is that impressive. You know, it's just hanging above you 60 or 70 feet in the air. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, they did a night show where we went at night and it was all lit up.
Yeah. Very cool. Whoops, got ahead of myself. That was the highlight of the trip. And then unfortunately, well, Carol, can I talk about this? Carol did something that's very not appreciated by the Egyptian people. She was eating some food that was prepared especially for us, and I guess it didn't agree with her, and she took it off the table and gave it to a cat, and then she got herself in a little bit of trouble.
Why was that troublesome? The Egyptians.
He's telling a story.
I'm teasing. It was another hot day, and Carol was able to kind of put out a thumb and hitchhike and get a escort
from the police. Wow.
Yeah.
You have to know our leader, Iman, because he would play tricks on people, including me. And he basically stopped the police car, opened the doors, and had me and this other woman go into the police car. So, they're wondering, where are we going? What's going to happen to us? Anyway.
Yeah.
So that was
so far before they let us out.
So we flew back to Cairo, and then we took a bus a couple hours north to Alexandria, and they have, I won't say recreated, but there's a brand new museum or library in Alexandria that they made. They put out bids to different, an RFP, I guess you might see, for design of a library that would somehow be worthy of the Egyptians. And this is sort of what it looks like. This is a reproduction of it, that you could see, and you'll see why I did this. The 2 buildings, and then there's a little bit on the outside of the actual building. Carol taking some shots. There's Don from Arizona again off to the right.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, sorry, I had a little bit. Let's go. I didn't quite edit the slides. This is inside the new library, and it's breathtaking. It's just an incredible building. I mean, just look at it. You look up, you gaze, every little detail has just been thought out. The soft lighting, the coloring, just everything to just welcome you. And
what's the Shakespeare reference there on the right? Left.
It's a bench, but yeah, there he is.
Oh.
Stumbled upon the thinker, I think, and then
Carey and I aren't talking to each other.
So
what was the book you were sitting on? that was open.
Shakespeare.
I
Well,
believe.
that's Shakespeare.
Yeah.
That's the Folio.
Yeah, if you go back one slide, you could see that big word Shakespeare there is that another view of that bench?
Excuse me.
Missed it.
Sorry, I'm jumping around. Nope, I lost
Nope.
it.
Go. One more, I think that one on the left side.
Bottom left.
Is that also the same bench, or is that where it says Shakespeare? I'm just no. Okay.
I cannot see. Remember if it's exact same. It was in that vicinity, I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
There.
But by the way, the Mediterranean is very salty, so it's hard to not float. It just pushes you up and you can't get your legs down.
So, I got a little out of order.
In the Mediterranean?
Yes.
That was the Mediterranean, yeah.
Wow, you're bold. You're very bold. That's wonderful. Let me see that picture again.
Bold or stupid. I mean, you know, it's hard to tell, but
How deep was it? The water you're swimming in? How
I
deep?
couldn't get my legs down to find out.
Oh my goodness.
So this was another town we visited alongside the Mediterranean. Help me out here, the Rosetta, the ancient town of Rashid, but they called it Rosetta, where apparently the Rosetta Stone was first found, and it unlocked a mystery of the hieroglyphics, so they could decipher what the hieroglyphics meant. And what you're seeing here is, I guess, to help, there's a lot of erosion there on the banks of the Mediterranean, so they had these concrete, odd-shaping things they just loaded up there that just kind of locked the shore in place. There was a lighthouse across the way we saw. It wasn't the fabled Alexandria lighthouse, but I thought to give a little shot at that. And one more thing with this was a jewelry museum that we went to. It had at one point been a private home of someone. I don't know if Carol or Ann remember some of the details. Maybe Sally, I don't know. You might have been there to Alexandria as well.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but it had all the crown jewels. It was just room after room after room, displays of all these different gold and ingots and all kinds of different stuff.
You know, that is beautiful. I think I was there, but all of a sudden it's all melding together. This was in Alexandria?
Correct. Yeah.
It was a mansion, some Mohammed's mansion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a former, I'm going to say not, I'm just venturing. Yeah, it's
residence at one point. Yeah.
Do you have to pay to get in that museum?
Yes.
Okay.
Oops. Here we're coming to the end. We got back to Cairo. And as you remember on the left, there was the Cairo Tower. We could see from our balcony. This is like our last night there. I said, we've got to make a trip over there. So we did. Had a couple beers, and then Carol, I don't know why, she gets a little silly after she had a couple beers in her. Calisthenics or something. Carol, can you explain that?
No. But I can explain that to get up into that tower, Carey, we took Anne, we took I think a
elevator partway.
What?
There's an elevator that went partway, and then there was
partway, and then let you out, and then you had to walk up these stairs, and it was quite a challenge for me anyways to get up there. And then once we were up there, though, it was really fun because you could walk around the tower, see all kinds of the whole city from there. And we tried to start thinking about, oh, where were we? Where was our hotel? And it was really fun to do that.
Could you see the pyramids on the horizon on that day? If it's clear, you can kind of see just a very soft outline of the pyramids from this tower.
Yeah, I don't think so. It looks very hazy to me.
Yeah, it was hazy. We could see, we went on a different day and we could just see them faintly in the distance, but it was an amazing view. You see how cosmopolitan Cairo has become.
And that it's hard to tell maybe a little bit, but in the middle shot and where the hotel was and where the Cairo Tower is actually an island, you know, that's kind of, you know, separated from the rest of the city.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, and this is kind of how we had to say our sunset. We had kind of had to say goodbye. This picture was actually taken back up in Alexandria with the sunset over the Mediterranean from our balcony at the hotel. It was just, you know, I got so many shots. It was breathtaking. It's just so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, how's the weather there? Nice? The weather?
Ah,
Hot and dry for the most part. Alexandria is a little bit more of a breeze coming in off the water, but quite nice.
Good.
Fortunate you were to be standing in that exact spot to get the sun centered in that building.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
A beautiful photo.
Just the right time of
sat out
year.
on the balcony drinking a lot of gin and tonics until that happened.
That was amazing.
So, yeah.
Living it up.
So that was kind of the conclusion. I could have had more slides, but I thought you got a pretty good eclectic mix of things and a little taste of Jordan and Egypt. And
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
Visit.
I want to applaud you, Carey. As anyone who's taken a big trip like this and taken lots and lots of pictures
Okay.
know, half the work in producing a slideshow like this is culling through the thousands of photos and figuring out just which ones tell the story best.
Yeah.
You've really taken us there.
I think I shared with you, Doug, what happened. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What happened too is I tried to find a piece of software that would actually delete anything that looked like a duplicate. Instead, it made duplicates of every single slide ad. I every single one. I did the count. I had 309 rows times 16 was about 4,900 and almost 5,000 slides. But multiply that by 3, I had to delete somewhere in the neighborhood of about almost 11,000 slides.
Wow.
Well, you did an amazing job. You really captured it, and I just loved reliving this. Thank you so much for including me.
Yeah, glad, Ann. I'm so glad you joined us, and you're such a great presence there, and just fun to be with. And you know, Carol has since gotten together, or excuse me, Ann got together with us, and our dogs are, you know, she met Jed.
To get the dogs together, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll do that this summer. And the same for me. You and Carol were just absolutely wonderful to travel with, and I'm glad we've stayed in touch.
For sure.
Sarah and I haven't done any group travel like this, but I keep hearing stories like this of folks that go on these trips and then end up making lifelong friends with folks from wherever. So, and where do you hail from? Where do you live? So.
I live in Lincoln, so fairly close.
Okay, so you're close.
Yeah, fairly close. But I would say I think we all bonded on that trip. You know, people from Arizona, Chicago, all over. I think we all had a shared love of adventure and history and art and people, you know, and it really came out. But they were a very kind group of people, very supportive. And, you know, for the most part, very easy to travel with. It makes it interesting, I think, to travel with a group. I enjoy that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the trip about? Was it about 3 weeks in length, or you packed a lot in?
We left, well, there's like 2 parts. So we had like a 5-day trip that went to Jordan. Not everyone was part of that. And then, but we left Boston on Friday, the 26th of August, and got back, I believe, on the 21st of September, if I'm not mistaken. So all told.
It was about a month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And had a coworker who was from the Cape, I think, Beth, I believe she lives, who was her friend that went on the trip with her. And I was just the luckiest person in the world for a country boy who's never, traveled across the pond. It was just a trip of a lifetime for me. I'm like, my God. So
Yeah,
thank you.
it was definitely a trip of a lifetime, and they did it very well. I think OAT specializes in Egypt. That was one of their first trips, but I thought they did it very, very well. I usually don't like tours, but this was very efficient, and they got us into places much more easily than I think we could have on our own. It was I spent only 2.5 weeks. I just did the Egypt trip. It was less expensive, 2.5 weeks in Egypt, less expensive than a week in Europe by far.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this friend of mine, Tom, and I, we did a big investigation of different companies and what they offered for the money. And OAT won the prize. They won the blue ribbon.
What was OAT again, Carol?
Overseas adventure travel.
And Carol got a special award. I think Ayman had kind of pointed out, people who've done the most trips. And I think Carol got a gold star. I think this is about your 10th trip, perhaps, with OAT.
Well, it was my 11th. trip.
Well, I went to Paris. I went to Paris with Tufts in Paris when I was at Tufts. I went abroad. So now they send me these trips, and anybody who's interested, I could share it with you guys, Doug and everybody. So it's like really discounted.
And anybody that wants to send along links or to travel companies that they've had good experience with, it's another great resource to share. I wanted to say this is really kicking off as we're into the summer period here and thinking about vacations and travel. Like I mentioned at the outset, we'll take next week off for the July 4th holiday, but then Deborah's going to tell us about her travel to Africa on the week after that. And I know at the end of the month, Bill and Gwen's niece is going to tell us about a fascinating 10,000-mile bicycle journey that they had. If anybody else would care to chime in with other big trips that they've taken, would love to have it. That could be our theme for July. We still got the 17th and 24th open. So
I'm going to have to leave, but thank you so much for including me. And it's great to see you, Carey and Carol, and to meet everyone else. And Sally, hi. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Anne, I'm so glad you joined in and kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. Yeah, it was so great to have you.
Good to see you, Anne.
It was wonderful.
Well, hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care, Anne.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. So cool.
Very cool.
Yep. Okay.
Well, Carey set a high bar here to follow, so good luck. Good luck.
It doesn't have to be quite as
Thought of going through
extravagant as that.
11,000 slides is just like mind-boggling.
Beautifully done, Carey. Really beautiful.
It was.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
My life.